Chapter 7 is forgiveness of that debt, meaning you won't even make payments on any of your credit cards anymore. Credit cards, medical debt, payday loans. By law, they're not allowed to keep suing you, sending collections, calling. They have to stop.
Ryan Alexander.
Jay,
How are you?
doing good.
As we've been covering bankruptcy,
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people get kind of faced with this decision, right? Is it time to file? When should I file? Why should I file? What are the pros and cons of filing bankruptcy?
Well, so the on the upside is you would get relief from your creditors. And so once we file the case, the creditors get notice, and by law, they're not allowed to keep suing you, sending collections, calling. They have to stop.
Mm.
So the upside is the relief from the creditors. In a Chapter 7, it's forgiveness of that debt, meaning you won't even make payments on any of your credit cards anymore. Credit cards, medical debt, payday loans, that type of unsecured debt. You just stop paying it and you get it wiped out. So you get that fresh start to start over. That's the pros. That's what you're looking for, is basically protection from creditors, freedom from your debt, starting over again.
Right.
Cons. Your credit score is going to restart at about 500. What I warn people, if you run your FICO score immediately after your case, it's probably going to be in the 500 to 520 range. FICO scores are complicated, but we've got this estimator program that actually will show what the estimated loss of points is, but then it'll also show what your credit score should be in about 18 months or about a year after your case is finished. So what I tell people is, your credit score will go at 500. Go and get a secured card with a fixed limit. You can put a deposit down and get a fixed limit card. Or if you have your car loan that you keep, okay, either of those, you'll gain about 10 points a month. So theoretically, in a year after your bankruptcy, you can be back up to about 620. And then within 2 years, you could be around 700, 680, 700.
Right.
That's assuming you make your payments on time and don't have any new negative credit.
Right.
So the trade-off is you're looking at as far as mortgages, that's what other thing people ask is that how long until I can get a mortgage? That's not a legal question as much as a mortgage lending question, but I know from experience that banks will say they want 2 years from a short sale or 3 years from a Chapter 7 discharge in order to get another mortgage. So you're looking at 3.5 years to get another house,
Right.
if that's your goal, or 2 years to kind of reestablish your credit. It does stay on your credit report for 10 years as an entry, but really the damage to your credit is short term as long as you're proactive about getting a new account and getting that reported on time.
But so is it like I guess if I'm struggling to think about like even weighing those pros and cons.
Yeah.
Like at the end, is it really like when is it really worth it? Because if I've got like say I've got $2,000 in debt.
Yeah.
I'm tired of, Capital One banging my line,
Yeah.
and I'm just like.
That's a good question. I tell people if you have less than about 15,000
Okay.
in credit card debt,
Right.
it's probably not time yet, or you could probably work your way out of that.
Right.
The rule of thumb I use, because you're looking at 2 to 3 years of repairing your credit, can you pay that off in 3 years? If you can find a way to save the money. Now it's saving. It's not you have to have your money to live on too, right? So you got to have out of the extra money that I have and that I save. Can I save enough money to pay that off in 3 years? And if you can, I tell people fight it out. So probably 1 in every 5 or 6 people that comes in, I look at it and I say, hey, look, I would tell you to wait for now.
Right.
If you don't have any judgments against you, like a creditor has served you a lawsuit, gotten a judgment, keep fighting. Keep pushing.
Well, 2 questions on that. The first is, but then you also, if you do, so let's say you have 10,000. So rather than really trying to work it out with your creditors, and you do this, you're also gonna take a hit with the interest rate, right? So when you're rebuilding, your interest rate is gonna be through the roof as well. So you're really gonna take a hit. So it's that's where you get back into, is it like becomes the balance on it's worth it?
you're right, because the first cards you get, or the first car loan you get after bankruptcy, your interest rate will be over 20%. It'll be 21, 23, 27% interest. You're going to get hit.
If you're lucky, you know.
So there's going to be a trade-off. So what I tell people is most people who see me about Chapter 7, the average who see me have about 25 to 30,000 in credit cards or medical debt or unsecured debt. They haven't paid in about a year. Some haven't paid in 2 years. But I would say on average, 25 to 30 haven't paid it in about a year.
Gotcha.
And then lately, the last 3 or 4 years, what we're seeing, the tipping point is when people get served a collection lawsuit. There are certain creditors that are more aggressive about suing in small claims. They tend to be small claims.
Right.
But, someone comes in, they've got a small claims lawsuit from, Discover Card, American Express, or Capital One. And that kind of tends to be what pushes people over. So if you have under 10,000 in debt, keep pushing unless you hit a point. When do I say 10,000 or less and you should still consider it? It's when the person is disabled or already on Social Security.
Gotcha. So, which actually in that answer, it brought me to another question. Let's say that you get served.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say I owe Discover $5,000, and Discover wants their money. So they serve me. They go to court. They get a judgment. But then what can they do? Can they garnish my wages? Can they?
Yeah. Once they have a judgment, they can garnish your wages. So what I tell people is that if you get served a lawsuit, that doesn't mean they can automatically go to your bank account or to your work and garnish you. Right. Take that money.
Right.
They have to go. They file the lawsuit. They serve you. Or if you avoid it or don't know about it, they can serve it by publication, meaning they put it in the Nevada Legal News newspaper. And
or whatever newspaper from their area.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, so some people if you have a card, if you moved here, but you have cards in Florida or New York or California, they might not know where you are. They put it in the paper there. So, you get a lawsuit or there's a lawsuit filed. Then if you don't answer it, then they move for a judgment. The judge will grant the judgment. On a contract case, it's kind of hard to beat. There's ways you can argue stuff, but those tend to be pretty straightforward cases.
Right.
So they get the judgment. Once they have the judgment, then they can have the constable, which is part of the police. They can give it to them, and they can go to your bank and pull it from your bank account, or they can go to your employer and take a percentage of your wage, not all of your wage, but they can take 18 to 25% of your income. So if you have that judgment against you, some people get judgments from these companies and they haven't found you yet, or they're looking around, so it might be out there. What the next thing they could do would be to garnish your bank or your salary. Bankruptcy would stop those. So the good thing about bankruptcy is we can pretty quickly get a case together and eliminate that judgment.
Okay, so what you're saying is, let's say I get served, nothing happens, okay, cool, but then they go ahead and they go to court, they go through the process, they get the judgment, now they're taking money out of my account, I can hit up a bankruptcy attorney.
Yes.
And they'll be able to get rid of that judgment.
Yes. The protection will start when we file the bankruptcy. So from when we file the bankruptcy petition, we notify your employer, the constable, and the creditor, the company that sued you. We notice them all immediately.
Right.
So, hey, we would send a fax. My office would send faxes and a letter. And then that's supposed to stop it from the day that the bankruptcy is filed. Meaning if sometimes it happens that your employer doesn't catch it through their HR, especially with the big casinos that have 20,000 employees.
Right.
It might take them a couple of days to process that. But anything taken from your paycheck after we filed the bankruptcy has to be returned to you. So usually within a month or two, you'll get it back.
Really? So that's actually, it sounds like, now that loaded with that information, that actually sounds like a pro, as far as on why you should file a bankruptcy. Right? So if you have a judgment against you and they're taking out, your wages, right, then it sounds like you'd be able to stop that and you get your,
Yeah, because once they've got the judgment and they've got the garnishment set, there's really no other way out.
Right.
I tell people the only things you can do are you can call the creditor and try and make them a settlement offer, but most of them will just be like, why? I could just let this garnishment sit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
The garnishment is good for 6 months at a time in Nevada, so they only have to file it once every 180 days, and then every time the payroll will just cut them a check.
Right.
So they will not have an incentive to negotiate. They'll just be like, fine,
Right.
I'll just wait. But the bankruptcy can stop it immediately.
Okay. And erase it.
Well, it stops the garnishment, and it also eliminates the underlying debt, the judgment.
Right.
It's void.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Cool. All right. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.